tonight on The South Today. Former Prime Minister Helen says COVID-19 is the biggest global threat in the modern age. Southern tertiary institutions open their doors to attract next year's students. And fire damages a Dunedin landmark. Kia ora, I'm Lissa Barton. Former Prime Minister Helen has visited Otago for a variety of reasons, including putting her weight behind a local candidate's bid for the Tertiary seat. Speaking at the Mosgiel Returned and Services Association, the former Minister of Health said COVID-19 has the possibility of becoming endemic.
At home in the south, former Prime Minister Helen addresses a boutique crowd at the Mosgiel RSA and says she's coming full circle with one of her southern engagements.
I've come down to supporting Leary's campaign for Tertiary and also once again to do the Dorothy Fraser lecture event which Curran began when she first was running for Parliament for Dunedin South, and it's carried on to this day. So back to the future, having I think probably been the first speaker in the series.
Clark was the administrator of the United Nations Development Programme from 2009 to 2017 and says the COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest issue facing the planet.
I mean, the news isn't that great on a global level. The pandemic is raging. It'll hit 20 million cases anytime soon.
New Zealand's 37th Prime Minister agrees that the country she led from 1999 to 2008 is doing well under Jacinda Ardern, but says constant vigilance is needed.
New Zealand, of course, is seen as having done pretty well, but we're going to have to keep managing around this for the foreseeable future because the disease could well become endemic, meaning it won't go away.
At 70 years old, there's no sign of her slowing down. She's set up and is the chair of an independent panel to review the World Health Organisation's response to COVID-19. And she believes a travel bubble between New Zealand and the Cook Islands could help both nations.
I know that the Cooks are around 70% dependent on tourism for GDP, so they're having a very, very tough time. Now, it stands to reason that if New Zealand is not experiencing community transmission, and the Cooks certainly aren't, we should enable people to travel safely between the two.
Clark says she has strong ties to the south, with her family settling in central Otago after arriving from Europe, and says her great-great-grandfather was the first mayor of Cromwell. In Dunedin, The South Today.
The tertiary education sector's open day season has kicked off, leaving those considering study or retraining to mull over their options. There were several older people amongst the school leavers checking out available courses.
Not very far from the madding crowd. Thousands of people flocked to the University of Otago and Otago Polytechnic today, looking at study options for next year. The day is a family affair for Central Otago man Andy Davey.
I brought my son. He's looking at doing a digital media course or IT. So while he's getting the hard word about that, I've been looking to see what I can do for myself.
Davey works as a web developer, but is keen to learn new skills around event management. As he says, he's got that sort of work on the horizon. He says he's philosophical about education.
Every day you learn something. Might as well formalise it.
Just along the hall from Andy Davey, the sport and massage therapy stalls are offering free neck and shoulder massages, which Simon Boddy says are proving popular.
Oh, the uptake's really good. A lot of inquiries, which have been fantastic. And of course, with the chair massage is always a winner. A lot of people have the tight shoulders and neck, and it's always good to get a wee bit of work done on that.
He says people who graduate from sports massage studies can go on to a wide variety of careers.
We've had people that have gone into work with cancer patients with massage. Also, one graduate's just finished and working with mental health and massage as well. So there are a lot of different areas you can go into.
Over in the School of Art, Stephen Hillman shows prospective students the finer art of filming and live streaming high-quality video.
So it was just a chance really for us to get some of the new kit that we've got for live streaming and break open all of the equipment and have a play with it really and show off to some of the students what we can do here.
Providing talent for the day is 6th-year photography student and songwriter Nico, who says she was a bit nervous about being in front of the camera.
I haven't performed for a while and I'm pretty shy about my voice, so it was it was good. It's sort of, now that it's done, I didn't really want to stop.
The University of Otago was also open for business, with steady queues of people enjoying the sun on the Union lawn before heading inside to check out possible lines of study. In Dunedin, the South Today.
It was a full house for the Supper Club fundraising event at the Dunedin Town Hall. The money raised at this year's event goes to children's hospital treatment and local businesses in financial trouble.
Images you don't see much of overseas these days. This full house of generous people are raising money for local Dunedin businesses and children in need. The Supper Club, now in its 9th year and organised by local McDonald's franchise owners Justin and Tertiary Stonelake.
And tonight really is about a celebration of being alive, being Kiwi, and being in a community that really give back. Who would have thought that we would have been here tonight? But these guys have made it possible, so we want to do a massive shout out to Dunedin because they're so giving and we're so blessed to be here.
By 7 p.m, more than $160,000 had been donated and was expected to climb even higher.
Which, you know, given the current environment, wow, take your hat off to you, Dunedin. That is just sensational. And you know what? It's really going to help the sick kids and their families when they're away from home, when they're going through life-threatening sort of conditions. It's the support that RMHC can wrap around them as a family. It's just huge.
Those who bought a ticket to the event were later given a seat at a selected restaurant around Dunedin, a welcome change from the recent lockdown.
I think a lot of people don't realise that, yes, we were in lockdown and so forth, but kids were still getting sick. Families still needed to be looked after, and Ronald McDonald House stayed open. So tonight is all about them as well. You know, being able to raise funds for a charity that keeps the families together in such a tough time is amazing.
The Stonelake say they have big plans for next year's 10th anniversary. It will be back bigger and better than ever. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A fire has damaged the roof of St Pauls Cathedral this week in Dunedin. Fire crews using about 8 appliances were able to bring the fire under control with relatively minor damage to the historic church.
Around 7 fire appliances plus an elevated turnable ladder were busy last night containing a fire in Dunedin's St Pauls Cathedral.
While the fire wasn't large, you can see behind me that being at the height it's at, it does add some complexities to it, so it's quite challenging working at those heights, having to use aerials and go up the scaffolding and things.
The alarm was raised at about 3:30 this morning, and a fire investigator says the blaze appears to have been started by accident. The church's dean, the Very Reverend Dr. Tony Curtis, says the fire was something he was not expecting to wake up to this morning.
I arrived about 4:20 this morning, and happily there'd been a really quick response from the emergency services and the fire was largely under control. Obviously it was quite a mess around the area. There was a lot of cordoned off. There were 5 appliances I think in attendance. We were just keen to see that nobody had been hurt and obviously try and assess the scale of the damage.
The fire caused some damage to the roof of the building, and a Pinex ceiling has been swollen with water. The crypt was also heavily flooded and needed to be cleaned up, but the church's altar and 100-year-old organ appear to have escaped damage.
Hopeful from what I've seen inside the building that there's nothing structural, but we'll obviously wait for the assessors to come down and have a look. We're concerned to protect the high altar and the organ, which is, you know, a really tremendous instrument which has been in 100 years this year, so we're hoping to protect that, and really it's just going to be a large clean-up job. We're going to have some work to do on that roof, and we'll just start rebuilding from now.
The 100-year-old building was insured. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a Southern politician calls time on her career, and a Dunedin eatery is putting one of its signature toasted sandwiches up against national competition. So catch this and more after the break. Welcome back. Fresh from giving her valedictory speech in Parliament, Dunedin South MP Claire Curran is preparing for the next chapter in her life. She has represented the electorate for 12 years and says there have been many highlights and some not so great moments during her career.
Dunedin South Member of Parliament Claire Curran is closing in on her final day in a role she's held for 12 years.
Every person who stands and gives their valedictory speech has gone through an awful lot to get to that point. So there was a lot of adrenaline, I think, and I tell you, when I'd finished, it's like a huge weight lifted off me, and I'm pleased it's over.
Curran used her valedictory speech this week to highlight what she says is the scrutiny female MPs are under from the media. She says women in Parliament receive labels which wouldn't be used for male politicians.
There are certain adjectives that are used with women that are basically meant as, to be frank, put-downs, as if they're speaking out of turn or speaking too loudly, or and so those unconscious bias, which is a phrase that we use often for racism, is used for sexism and misogyny, and it persists. And if you're a woman in Parliament, you feel it a lot. And can I just say, I've experienced a lot of adjectives used in headlines with me over the years.
Gender discrimination is an experience she shares with 3 MPs who are also leaving at this election. 3
really good women on the other side of Parliament who I have admired and liked, but unfortunately the experiences can be pretty torrid.
In years gone by, Parliamentary Press Gallery journalists would attend proceedings in the House. Curran says these days many simply watch Parliament TV, giving them a position of distance. But she says politicians put themselves in the firing line if they criticise the media.
But it's a taboo subject in our society, which is, something I find very immature and destructive, is that somehow you can't criticise the media because you're not allowed to go there, and if you do, there are consequences, and I have suffered the consequences.
Her time in the House hasn't been without controversy, including a moment she remains proud of, being ejected from the House for wearing a rugby jersey. But she says helping constituents and her work towards saving hillside workshops are among her favourite memories of a political career. Claire Curran is looking forward to taking a break from public life and is open to opportunities which may present themselves in the coming months. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Could the best toasted sandwich in New Zealand come from Dunedin? A home-style meatloaf toastie being served up at a local eatery could be destined for culinary greatness.
A Dunedin chef is confident he's making the best toasted sandwich in the nation. Hungry Hobo's owner, Romeo Dowling Mitchell, created the bat out of hell toasted sandwich in his George Street eatery. He says he was chuffed when told last week his sandwich was one of 12 finalists in the annual Great New Zealand Toastie Takeover, especially finding out about the competition when it had already finished last year.
I found out about it last year, but it was after it had all finished. I was like, best toasted sandwich in New Zealand, it popped up on my newsfeed, and I was like, oh, how come I wasn't entered in that?
His sandwich ingredients include homemade meatloaf, hence its name, creamy mashed potato, gravy, pickles and aged cheddar, toasted between herb-buttered ciabatta. His toasted sandwich was comfort food rather than something with potentially pretentious ingredients.
And with all my stuff, my soups and my sandwiches, there's a massive focus on flavours and textures rather than, so much the presentation. I'm about, I think if you get the flavours and the textures right, the food will almost garnish itself.
This month, a mystery judge would travel across New Zealand to find the best toastie.
One guy came in with a clear file, and we're like, could it be that guy? But then he was getting it to take away, and we're like, would the judge, get it take away? And then there were all these little theories that we had about, we'd just play around and have a laugh about it, but we'd always make sure that but I mean, with every sandwich anyway, we always make sure it's bang on.
Next year, he says he might jazz up one of his veggie toasties for the competition. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The world's best exponents of the art of ploughing are coming to Lake Hawea in 8 years' time. After a lot of campaigning, the locals are hoping to see a sizable contingent of ploughmen and supporters contributing to the tourist dollar in 2028.
Striving for the perfect furrow, these ploughing enthusiasts gave their all in this year's regional champs in Lake Hawea on the weekend. Using the older style ploughs, it takes a lot of skill and practice to keep the furrows straight and even.
Reasonably difficult. Yeah, you never get it as good as perfect, but yeah, it depends on how much time you spend practicing and getting used to the soil conditions at the time.
Each competitor's plot is drawn out of a hat, with the plough operator hoping for not too many stones in the area they've been tasked to turn into perfect corduroy.
Even in a 2 hectare paddock, you'll get one corner that's a bit different to the rest of it, you know, whether it's 2 hectares or whether it's 20 hectares, there's always a certain little area that's a bit different, you know. So the less sort of secrets you got under the ground, the better it is, yeah.
And the locals have secured the rights to host the World Champs in 8 years' time, with about 60 of the best ploughers from across the world competing right here in Lake Hawea.
There's 2 young fellas here, the Urquhart boys. It's going to be on an Urquhart property, the World Ploughing, and those 2 lads put together a very good proposal. It was done professionally, and we presented it to them. We proved to them that we have farmland to plough, we've got accommodation, we've got tourist things, attractions to do. Basically, we've just got a good infrastructure to have it.
Osborne says the World Champs could be positive for the region's tourism.
What we're trying to achieve is to sell it to the district as a whole, the QLDC, and and promote it. And we really want overseas tourists to look at the packages and want to come here, because there's a lot of people from around the world follow the ploughing, and they the English will bring a lot of English people, Irish, there'll be a group of Irish people.
And the winner of this weekend's event will go on to compete against about 25 other New Zealanders in the national ploughing finals in Balfour next year. In Lake Hawea, the South Today.
After the break on this edition of Southern Newsweek, a Southern motorsport event has many cars racing around South Otago, and members of the Otago Nuggets basketball team lose here after making a promise. So see you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Sharing simple solutions through song, Waste Free Wander has been entertaining pupils at Alexandra Primary School with a combination of environmental messages and catchy tunes. The brainchild of Hawea singer-songwriter Anna Van Riel, Wander has been touring schools across Otago, revealing tips on how to reduce waste.
Children at Alexandra Primary School enjoyed an afternoon of song last week with retro 80s superhero Waste Free Wander. The alter ego of Lake Hawea singer Anna Van Riel, she has been touring schools across the region with a message of reducing waste and recycling. Her tour has taken in about 15 schools across the region with a combination of environmental tips and memorable tunes.
Shall we do this together? Say yes! Yeah! Alright, here we go! Refuse all those things that you don't need. Put your hand out and refuse!
In Alexandra for the South Today.
Following a promise to lose some here if they won the National Basketball League title, 3 members of the Otago Nuggets basketball team went under the barber's razor. The event was held to raise funds for young people to develop their basketball skills.
Jordan Nutai was one of 3 Otago Nuggets basketball players to lose a lot of hair in Dunedin's octagon on Sunday.
Yeah, I was honestly scared. I didn't know what was going to be underneath here. Not seeing my face and half of my face in 3 years was pretty scary, but I mean, it's awesome. It's going to grow back.
The players were following through on a promise made at the beginning of this year's season to undergo a close shave if they won the National Basketball League title. And thanks to last week's victory, Josh Aitchison also lost a moustache and Jared Kenny was shorn of his mullet, all the while raising money for aspiring young players.
Oh, we're really grateful that they gave up a big part of their identity to help raise funds, especially for the Dunedin basketballers down here who may otherwise miss out on enjoying the sport that they've got so much out of. So kudos to them, we're really appreciative of the effort they've put in for us.
Over $3,000 has already been raised to support youth players who need financial help in the game.
You know, representative teams always have to travel away, and it's usually about $1,500 a tournament for them because they're up north. So we'd like to see those kids that deserve to be there across all levels, not just the elite level, be able to participate and enjoy what, you know, we've all had out of basketball over our lifetime.
And Nutai says he's pleased with the quick success of the Otago team after 7 years of not being in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's been good to see what it's become from when it first started. I think it was awesome to have the team in the league, and obviously winning it just puts the cherry on top, but no, it's been awesome. Donations to their fundraiser came from as far afield as the United States, Canada and Australia. In Dunedin, the South today.
81 drivers from across New Zealand have competed in the annual Catlins Coast Rally. Second place went to a local driver who has attended every Catlins Rally since the event's inception 20 years ago.
Now in its 20th year, the annual Catlins Coast Rally has been attended for all 20 events by local driver Andrew Graves, who along with his 17-year-old son Hayden as co-driver, gained second place in a Mitsubishi EVO. Graves says corners such as the one seen here are quite a challenge for the drivers.
Definitely had a good look at the roads over the years, but there's still some corners out there that catch you out and give you a heck of a fright.
Graves lost out to a Mitsubishi Mirage helmed by Christchurch driver Matt Summerfield, who saw the father and son duo as a formidable challenge, beating them by just 39 seconds after almost an hour and a half of racing on slippery gravel roads south of Balclutha.
Andrew Graves, you know, he's won it a few years in a row, and I knew he'd be fast, and it showed straight away in stage one. So I knew it was going to be a pretty hard push, and just tried to build a lead. It's been a few years pushing him hard, and so it's finally good to get one over him.
The six-stage event started off with 81 cars, but by the end of the day 19 had retired for various reasons, with 4 crashing off the road. But those who made it to the finish line were pleased with how the rally had unfolded.
We had a great day. We had an absolute stunning day. The sun's been out, you know, there's been the odd shower go through, but look, my son and I have had a great day, and yeah, we can't fault the result. Matt Summerfield's been on his game all day, so yeah, he's got the win, so very happy with second.
The next major rally event in the south is the Gore Clubman's Rally, set for mid-October. In Owaka, the South today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, check out odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.